Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Intentional Life Podcast. My name is AJ Selby.
I'm Amy Selby.
And this is the podcast where we talk about how adding one simple layer of intentionality can make the seemingly overwhelming aspects of life more manageable, whether it's your relationships, your finances, your work, anything like that. And so we are here today again. We're here at Mad Toy Box Studios, our new home here in Charlotte. I keep almost saying Nashville. Our new home in Charlotte after we moved. And guys, if you are liking what we're putting out, we would appreciate if you just hit like, share, or subscribe, whether you're sharing an episode with somebody from your favorite podcast platform or sharing the YouTube video, sharing any of our reels or shorts on social media. And we'd love if you left us a review. We want to hear from you, our listeners, what you're enjoying about the podcast. It helps the algorithms push it out to more people so more people can hear what we're talking about, and hopefully we can help more people along the way. So, babe, what is our question today?
Our question today is how to focus on preparing for your marriage instead of being consumed with wedding day planning. So, meaning when you're engaged.
Yeah, I think this is like just a really good topic to be talking about and to be taking into consideration, because so many people spend so much time invested into planning this one event that could be it could be 2 hours, it could be 6 hours, depending on how long you're partying for, and yet they don't spend nearly the same amount of time preparing for a marriage that's supposed to be for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
So someone may spend 40 hours in total, picking vendors and looking for places and planning food and linens and dresses and suits and all this stuff. And 40 hours may be a low number comparatively to how much goes into planning for a wedding. And so I'm just going to go with 40 hours for a 1 week time frame based off of that. But if someone's spending at least 40 hours planning for a wedding, how much time are they spending comparatively in making sure there's a really solid foundation prior to the marriage that's the setup for the rest of their lives? And that's not even like, and someone could say, well, yeah, we've been engaged for a year. That doesn't mean that there's been an intentionality in how you have prepared and laid the groundwork for a marriage, like for something of that significance. Like if someone put in 40 hours of planning for a wedding, did they put in the same amount of time into premarital counseling and mentorship and seeking, whatever is going on, like in setting themselves up and giving them the tools to have a successful marriage?
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that's really important. Preparing for a wedding day it's fun and it's necessary and it's exciting. It's all these things. It can also be very stressful. It can get to the point that it's sucking the life out of you, which is almost not worth it. Like, it's like, do less then. If it's sucking the life out of you, do less. But yeah, it should not overshadow, as you just said, preparing for your actual marriage. And I think, this person was asking, how do you prepare for your marriage and not just get completely consumed in the wedding day planning? I think a big part of that is making sure that you are going to premarital counseling. I don't know if all pastors do this, but I know there are a lot of pastors who, if you're going to ask them to be the pastor that marries you, they will require some amount of premarital counseling, because they just want to make sure that you're actually, going in a good direction and that you have something. And so if that's the case, if it's, the person that's going to marry you, and so they're like, okay, well, you need to do at least 1 or 2 sessions with me. I just want to make sure you have something. That's fine. And that's good. Also, I would say, don't let that be it. 1 to 2 sessions, and I know way too many people who've only done one. I mean, I know a lot of people who didn't do any premarital counseling, but 1 or 2 sessions is just not enough. It's not enough. And I'm grateful that there are a lot of pastors who require that in order to be the pastor that marries you. I'm grateful for that. And I would encourage engaged couples to seek more of that, whether it's with that individual pastor and asking for more sessions, like, hey, well, we're grateful for the 1 to 2 sessions that you require. Can we have more? Because we really want to invest in our marriage and ahead of time, and we know what we're getting into in terms of, there are things that do blindside you that people maybe didn't mention until you get in that premarital space, that premarital counseling space. And, if that's not a possibility for whatever reason, like for us, we got married in a different city than we lived in at the time, which actually the person that married us was the person that did all of our premarital counseling because he traveled with us, to marry us. But like, let's say the pastor that's going to marry you is in the city that you're getting married in, but you don't live there. Well, then find somebody, they may be able to do virtual, or find someone close by where you are who can do that for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say just really invest in the time in that premarital counseling space, because hopefully it's someone who is really grounded. I mean, usually it's a pastor, but it could be a mentor or something like that, who is grounded in their faith and also can actually help you prepare for marriage. So
Right.
Hopefully they're married. Sometimes, they may not be, but like with us, the gentleman who did our premarital counseling, he'd been a part of both of our lives for a long time. So he knew us personally really well, which helped a lot, actually. So if you can find that, then that's amazing. Not everyone can find that, so that's okay. But also, we had, how many sessions did we have? We had several, and we had some that were individual. Like I had some with his wife, you had some with just him. We had several together.
I thought we had 4 together and 2 individually.
Yeah, maybe. And that was an engagement period of 3.5, 4 months. So it wasn't actually a lot of time. So that was a lot of sessions actually to fit into that space with how much other things we had going on. But he gave us like multiple pages of questions and things to go through and answer individually that some of them I never would have thought to discuss. And some of them were just personal for us. And most of them were for us to discuss together. But we had to answer them individually on our own. And then in our sessions, and then sometimes he'd give us homework and say, go talk about these over here by yourself. You don't have to be in a session to talk about those. But a lot of them we would talk through in our sessions together with he and his wife. And it was so helpful because, literally all the things you could think about for preparing for marriage. From financially to, things that had to do with physical interaction to...
You mean sex?
Yeah. To how many kids did we want to... all kinds of things. Thinking about long-term future things. What were goals and ideas that we had? What kind of home did we want? Very practical things, emotional things, spiritual things, so many topics and questions were covered. And I so appreciated that. And I had this couple that we trusted, both of us trusted them, that I could talk through these if I needed to talk with the wife and be like, I need to talk through this question before I answer this and before I talk to AJ, because what is this asking me? Or I'm not really sure how to navigate answering this. But yeah, that was so, so, so helpful. There are other amazing tools out there as well that can help you prepare for marriage, different courses, or there was a course that I did personally, and then I asked you to do it with me. It was an online thing.
Well, actually, that's kind of going in another direction where it wasn't a premarital counseling course that you did.
Yeah.
It was a course that went into the investment of our relationship in our marriage. So go ahead and talk about that course a little bit.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's been 6 years since I've done it, so I don't remember all the details of it.
Just give the flyover. What were the basics of what this was about?
So it was this Christian couple, and I don't even remember how I found this course. They did this like free online course. It was, I don't know, 8 video sessions or something. And they were talking to Christian couples specifically. And they talked about like expectations with like sex primarily. That was a big thing that they talked about, because they're like, look, this is a really big thing and it causes a lot of issues. But like being able to, how do you talk through what are those expectations, even thinking through your own expectations, because we all have them, even if we don't know that we do. We don't take the time to take account of them. We all have them. So to be able to sit and think through, which can feel awkward if you were somebody like me who I did grow up in a Christian environment my whole life. I did not live a promiscuous life. I had never even kissed somebody until you. Like, so even thinking about things like that was a little uncomfortable. I just made myself go into a mindset of going, this is normal when you're married. Like, this is something I'm going to have to step into, and I've got to start thinking about this now. And there are some things, not in grave detail, but there are some things we do have to talk about as an engaged couple that we have to talk about before we get to our wedding night. And again, not in nitty-gritty, not in like overly descriptive terms, but there are things we have to discuss about this so that we know where we both stand. And because, especially since you and I had very different experiences in that area, in that arena. And so this couple really talked through a lot of that. And then that wasn't the only topic that they talked about. I mean, it was really just being intentional with the relational intimacy things and really taking account of expectations in general. But a lot of it was around the physical side of things, which, and they did it in a very appropriate way. That was just like, this is stuff you're gonna have to face. Like, you're gonna have to talk about this, but you just need to talk about it in an appropriate way. And I really appreciated that. And they brought up things that nobody had really talked to me about before or mentioned to me. And I knew asking AJ to go through this with me, like asking you to watch these videos with me, I knew was going to be silly to you in some degree, because you'd kind of been there, done that. Like, you'd been married, you'd been like, so there was some stuff that was like, you were 29 at the time. It was like, I guess I was thinking, you're probably thinking in your head, do I really have to talk about these basic, fundamental, like, things that have to do with sex and, like, whatever. And they were talking about anatomy and, like, different things like that. But to me, it was really important because no one had talked through those things with me. And there was some stuff like, I'd done my own research or whatever on some things, or asked advice by people I really trusted to ask those questions. But in general, nobody had talked to me about that growing up or whatever. And they addressed a lot of things I had questions about. And so I watched through, I don't remember if I watched all of it or just some of it. And then I asked you to join me. And I think you were a little reluctant at first, but you did. You joined me. You watched them and you were there and you had those conversations with me. And I so appreciated it because you met me where I was at, and you didn't judge me for like that it maybe felt silly to you or whatever. Like that was the preparation I needed. And I needed to know we were on the right page about the XYZ things. And so that was a course that I did. And I'm pretty sure it was free. Yeah, and it was like 8 sessions or something. But it really helped me. And that isn't going to be necessary for every person.
And I mean, that's just one type of resource or course that there is.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just a good, I'm glad you brought that up, because that is just a good example of you took the time to invest your time. And I don't remember that it was free. I think it was something like $50 or something like that.
It might have been, yeah.
But
Which for us at the time was a lot.
Right. But you took the time, you invested the time into something that would play out over the length of our marriage. It was something that wasn't just, all right, where do we want the donuts from for our coffee and donuts at the wedding? It was, no, this has to do with how we're communicating our expectations around sex, how we're like, the frequency of intimacy and that kind of stuff, and the comfortability with being able to communicate about that and how to talk about it. And that was one aspect. And, this isn't just, it's kind of a plug, but it's not a plug. But I mean, like we've done, premarital counseling for folks before too, where, we talk about stuff, and some people might be like, oh my gosh, you've only been married 5.5 years, blah, blah, blah. What are you doing premarital counseling with people? And yet it's like, I can understand that. And we've had so much poured into us.
Yeah.
And we've experienced a lot over the last 5.5 years that, sure, if that's the approach that you want to take, you can judge us, that's fine. But we've had so much poured into us that why would we just hold on to that and not share that with other people?
Or like even just tag team with older couples.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so being able to walk through that and be able to help people, and, we typically recommend, please, if you're going to do it, at least do at least 6 sessions that are an hour to 2 hours a piece. And actually, I'll just walk you through what we do. Where we typically, minimum 4, but we really want to do 6 sessions as couples that are 1 to 2 hours a piece. And then Amy and I have both, got with the husband or wife respectively, for individual sessions outside of that, just to talk through and check in and things like that, where it's like, and we're giving homework, we're giving them things to talk about, like what our premarital counseling did with us, where it's like, here's some questions for you two to talk about and for you two to answer individually and bring back and talk to us. Or, okay, now that we've done this, now you guys go back and you two talk about it and let's check in about it next week. And we talk through that. And so it's just such a valuable thing to invest the time in making sure that your relationship is in a good place for the entirety and the launching pad for your marriage. And it's not just all the go and planning about the day, making sure that your relationship is in a good place and that your communication and your expectations and all of this stuff is set in a good spot.
Yeah. And I would say, definitely a topic to talk about would be finances, which, if somebody's giving you all those questions like what we received in our premarital counseling, they're going to give you questions about finances and all that, because you're coming together as one when you get married, right? So what does it look like for us to merge our bank accounts, or who's going to handle the finances primarily? Like, how do we talk through financial decisions? And some of that you will figure out as you kind of get into your groove as a married couple. Like, some of that's just kind of trial and error as well. But some of the initial things you want to talk about a little bit beforehand, and expectations of finances and those kinds of things. Just because finances are, I mean, it's a huge cause for divorce. People not seeing eye to eye on finances, somebody who doesn't give, you know, the other spouse control at all, or they hide money or whatever. Like, so being able to talk through that and have an understanding that you're going to be transparent with each other about finances as you go forward. What kind of debt do you have? Do you have any debt? Have you ever been in debt? Like, what does that look like? What is your stance on credit cards? What is your stance on loans? What is your stance? Like, all of these things. And if you don't even know, like if you're really young and you just don't know, that's okay. And you can still talk through that and you can say, I don't really know. I haven't thought about that before. I'm 20 years old. I'm 22 years old. That's okay, but talk about it. Because that is huge. Because finances are not the most important thing in a marriage by any means, but you have to have money to survive, to function in life, to pay rent, to pay a mortgage, to whatever your living situation looks like. Groceries, all these things. Is one person a big spender and the other person's a saver? Are you both spenders? Are you both savers? Like, what does that look like? What are your tendencies with money? Like, don't be ashamed about it, but talk about those things with each other and start to formulate a plan for how you can complement each other with that once you get married. And if you need to, especially if you're really young and you just are like, I don't really know what to do, it's okay to bring in someone to help give you financial advice. I mean, even if you're older, but it's okay to bring someone in to give you some financial advice or whatever. But that's a big thing to talk about and prepare, especially because when you're preparing for a wedding, you're spending a lot of money. And that looks different for everybody. Some people, they're, one of the engaged couple, their parents are taking care of like everything, or maybe both parents, or maybe it's just on you two as a couple. You're paying for everything out of pocket. Like, is it coming out of your savings? Is it like, what does that look like in that season? Because are you paying so much money for your wedding that you're going into your married life broke? Like, I mean, are you paying so much for your wedding that you're going into debt? And that's how you're starting your marriage off, stressed and strained about how much you owe on the party you just had. Like, by all means, have a good wedding, have an amazing wedding. But if it's going to put that kind of strain on you as soon as you get married, it's not worth having all those things. The marriage is more important than the things you have at your wedding. And so, yeah, those are all really important things to talk through as well when you're prepping for getting married.
Yeah. I would say if someone were to come to me right now, which I guess they have with this question, or at least this topic, the things that I would say are paramount are the key things. If you don't look at anything else to lay the groundwork for your marriage, the key things I would say would be: make sure you talk about finances, make sure you talk about sex, learn how to communicate well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then figure out what are the dreams and goals that you have for the future. There are like some really practical things right now to look at and prepare for, and then looking at what is it that the dreams that you two individually have for the future, and where do those come together. And if you can find somebody to walk you through those things and how to communicate that well and learn how to talk about that. Amy and I have talked about how it's so important to learn how to interpret the language of your spouse. And
Yeah,
when
that's
you
super
can
important.
start to get on the same page with a lot of that, whether it's, financial wise, go do Financial Peace University together in preparation for your marriage. Sex, it's in premarital counseling, or find a course like what Amy talked about, where it just prompts you to have conversations about what a physically intimate life looks like and the expectations around that. Communication, again, premarital counseling, or somebody that does, coaching and can help provide you with the tools to better communicate and understand your spouse.
Right.
All of those are key to setting up the launch pad of your
Mm.
marriage together and the future. And all of that has so much more weight and importance than how great a party you threw
Right.
for your wedding.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'd say those are the key things to look at.
Yeah. I mean, I 100% agree. And I'm glad you brought up communication because, yes, that is a huge, huge, huge thing. How you both think and operate and all of that. So, how that can complement and or clash.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, all of that is really, really true. And that's some really good, like, it's just a good foundation to launch from.
mhm. Yeah, and just a super quick story. I mean, I remember um, my oldest sister saying when we were getting married, when we were engaged and preparing to get married, some of the input that she gave me was, look, I've seen so many people who poured so much money into their wedding day. They had to have the fanciest venue. They had to have this $10,000 dress. They had to have like all of these things that were so much money. And they spent all of their time, all of their energy, all of their finances into that one day. But they did not invest at all into their marriage. And so many of those people wound up divorced because they didn't actually set themselves up for success. They spent so much time focusing exactly what this person is saying in this question is they got consumed with the wedding day and not with how do we set ourselves up for success as a married couple. And that was the best. And I'm so grateful she gave me that input because she was like, it is going to benefit you to pour into your marriage now than to not do it at all or to wait until things get rough. Like pour into it now ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
And that was such good advice.
Yeah. And I think also too, with learning about, just how your spouse communicates and how they navigate life, quick story to close it out before we get to a question is that I love this story of my brother and sister-in-law. That the week of the wedding was bananas crazy, and there was all kinds of weather stuff in Phoenix and things like that that was causing them both to be pretty stressed about it. And somewhere along the way, a couple days before the wedding, they were having a conversation and decided that they were going to go and just have some one-on-one time to reconnect the morning before the wedding. Like not the day of the wedding, but the day before the wedding, that morning. They went and they had one-on-one time. There were still all these people in town, all this family in town, and they took a morning to go and sit at Waffle House by themselves and reconnect and just kind of re-ground themselves in the scenario where they were able to kind of take a step back, de-stress, and just look at everything that was happening and make sure that they were on the same page and kind of reset for themselves. And I think that is such a great picture of the importance of it's not the day that's the thing. It's the relationship.
Yeah.
That's the important thing. And they took the time to reconnect and make sure that everything was good the day before the wedding.
Yeah.
And now it's almost like a double anniversary thing that they do. They go do that every year.
Yeah.
On the anniversary of that day. So it's like they go do Waffle House the day before their anniversary, and then they go the next day and go celebrate their anniversary.
I
So
love
it's
that.
super fun.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
That's awesome.
Who's doing the question today?
You.
Okay.
I read the question, so.
Okay. All right. Frank.
Oh, no. Is this one going to be one I have to sit here and think for a while?
Maybe.
Oh, no.
Actually, you might not.
Okay.
What do you think is holding me back from my success?
From your success.
This is one of the and questions.
I guess maybe the main thing, and I talk to you about this from time to time, so this is not a shock to you, is exhaustion, or how tired you get, because you push yourself so hard and so fast, and then you crash. And then you push yourself so hard and so fast, and you're working hard, you're doing amazing things, but maybe it's more of needing to find a rhythm that allows rest in the middle of it, rather than just grinding and hustling and then crashing and burning for a full weekend and sleeping, and then that's what I would say.
Rest is for the weak.
Jesus rested. So you can take that and shove it. Thank you.
I know.
Mr. 8 over there.
It's true. It's true.
So more rest would be maybe the key to your success. I don't know. What about me?
I think what holds you back from your success is your analysis paralysis. You end up on a hamster wheel of thinking where it's just all of this in your head, and thinking about this and thinking about this and thinking about this, and you know, over analyzing, rather than, like, we have the conversations where it's like, babe, just raise the sail and start going. You can't go anywhere until you raise that sail and you start to get into motion. Yeah, it's the analysis paralysis and the decision, like, paralyzation.
Yeah. Well, I would agree with that.
You have a degree in it?
I said I would agree with that.
I was like, shoot, my girl has a degree.
Actually, I don't. I never went to college, so there's that.
I went to a lot of college and still don't have a degree.
Gosh.
But
we're a pair.
So I prefer oranges, but.
Oh my gosh. Okay, let's wrap this puppy up.
All right. Well, hey, thank you all so much for coming to this week's episode of the Intentional Life Podcast. Like we said at the beginning, if this has been something you've found enjoyable and helpful, please just share it with somebody. Just hit the share button on YouTube or on whatever platform you're listening on, so that other people can hear, other people can be encouraged. Maybe they can gather a few tools along the way, and then it just helps put what we're sharing in front of more people. We want to be able to help more people, be a resource for more people, and go from there. And so hit it, like, share, subscribe, review. Give us a review on whatever podcast platform you listen to. That's always super helpful and helps get it in front of more people. If you like any of our social media stuff, you can find us on the Intentional Life Pod, where we share little nuggets of these conversations. I'm sure that little "I prefer oranges" piece will make it into a clip at some point, just because it's fun. Anyways, thank you again for listening. My name is AJ Selby.
I'm Amy Selby.
And this has been the Intentional Life Podcast.